Hi, this is Nella. I'm going to analyze one of my keynotes and one of my Word documents that I created to analyze for accessibility. So, starting here with the keynote, I'm noticing that I'm using here Online Accessibility Handbook to analyze these first. I'm noticing here that I'm using actually a navigator view instead of the outline view, so that would be something I could change when I upload this to Schoology. I also use the outline on the slides, the slide layout to actually create my slides in many cases, but I also often use text boxes to organize my information a little bit differently. So that would be something that I would have to consider as well. In terms of reading order, I think that's for the most part pretty good, that I have always information um, that is related and in order. In terms of images and shapes, I do not include alternate text or not as not explaining really what the image is showing. It's just a very short text, so maybe I could include a little bit more text that explains the image. In terms of lists, I frequently use bullet points as well as numbering, so that when using the voice feature, the computer can actually read everything in order. I think that would be pretty important. In terms of links, I don't have many links here in this PowerPoint, but I usually have I link the text that explains what is being linked to. So for example, name of the website, name of the video, things like that. In terms of color, I do like to use contrasting colors. So I often use white background and darker text, and sometimes I use colors, you can see right here, to show something that's really important so students would pay attention to it. I think the white background just makes everything pop up better, so you can actually see it a lot better. It looks a lot cleaner, so I like it that way. In terms of video and audio, I have a video here, but I do not have captions or transcripts here, so there would be something. I only have a descriptive title of what the name of the video is, but other than that, I do not have that. So that would be something that I could include in my PowerPoint. In terms of the Word document, I do use headings. So you can see here the name and then little subtitles. Images, I have a little image here representing the setup of the experiment. This is for an experiment that reviews the steps of the scientific method at the beginning of the year. So it's created as a little experiment so the students would collect data and review all the variables and groups and steps of the scientific method. Lists, I do use bulleted lists, as you can see here, also numbered under the procedure. Links, this link right here would actually link to the data table, but this link is not linked right now, but I usually link that to the data table so all the students would go to the Google Sheets and they could all enter their data for the experiment in that same data table, so we would compile more data, which is going to make the experiment more valid. In terms of color and background, I already mentioned that I'm using contrast. On the Word documents, I usually don't use much color just because I guess in past, when you print it out, it's not really visible. We didn't have a printer, color printer. But now that we have iPads, that would be something that I could use more on the Word documents as well. In terms of the book chapters that we read, and Rice is mostly discussing the laws and what it means in terms of what kind of impairment can students have and what kind of disabilities they can have. So what I really gather what would be important here for the analysis would be the visual, hearing, and mobility impairments, and using a magnifying feature, for example, on the iPad. I found that text-to-speech feature, we obviously speech feature, we have that. That would be something that could read aloud features that would be really nice on the iPad, since all of our students have iPads. In terms of hearing, using the warnings in place for sounds, I have to explore that. And then for the mobility, speech recognition, word production, so that would be something that students can use as well. In terms of the UDL guidelines, I have found that representation part is the most applicable to this analysis. So in terms of perception, providing information through different types of modalities would be like a vision, hearing, touch. When I do the experiment with actually, when I teach the properties of water here, example with this keynote, I also use demonstrations. So, for example, I use a balloon and I rub it against students' heads, put it close to the very slow stream of water, and the water is going to be actually bending towards the balloon. So these are some good visuals that students can see. I also use lycopodium so students can put their hand into the water, and when it comes out, it's completely dry because lycopodium is so hydrophobic, does not mix with water. So students can actually see that as well as feel that in terms of touch. Providing information that can be adjusted, like enlarging text, sounds, that's something that I already discussed. Colors and speed and timing of the videos would be something that's interesting. I just looked actually on videos that are on YouTube. You can adjust the speed and timing of the videos, so that would be something that's beneficial. Also, layout of the visual elements is important. I think it should be clear. I try to do that, obviously. And then offering alternatives for the auditory. This is, again, using the speech to text and different captions, providing the diagrams and charts. And I usually use a lot of charts in terms of review and summing all the information together. I try to always start with a big picture and end with a big picture. And I try to create charts for the students and diagrams that are going to help them review. So for example, for the properties of water, I would use a chart, list all the properties of water, and then together with the students, I would fill it out in terms of the definitions, examples, applications, so students can have everything in one place in order to understand those properties. Using some auditory information here, also written transcripts for the videos. I never use that. That would be something that I would have to implement a little bit more. Sound effects, that's something I would have to play with, and I think some of these are already mentioned before. Providing options for language and symbols, clarifying vocabulary and symbols. I tend to actually do that, and I just noticed here I had a clarification for Greek symbol delta, so I think that is helpful, and just noticed I actually did that. I try to define a lot of the terms, especially for the students that are struggling and not as familiar with the topic. Highlighting structural relationships, I think that would be something that's good. I usually try to color code things, but I think that could be even done more. Things that are actually, the concepts that are connected and related could be color coded, for example, throughout the whole PowerPoint in the same color, or Keynote in this case. Promoting understanding across languages like translations and description of the images. I think I mentioned that before already, but that's something I could improve as well. Simulations, graphics, videos, obviously very, very helpful. Then providing options for comprehension, relating to background knowledge, I think that's really important, and that's why I like to use these demonstrations. An example with the properties of water, so students can actually relate to something that they already know, but now they are connecting that to the new knowledge and polarity of the water, and why is water polar, and how all that actually works together. Accenting big ideas, again, outlines, graphic organizing, concept organizers, already talked about that. Guiding information processing, models scaffolding. I know I was teaching a foundations class, a lower level class, that I use a lot of scaffolding. as well. And then maximizing transfer and generalization. I think it's really important to, again, have a lot of the organizers and templates and charts, and going back to these key ideas, I think is always important. So that's my analysis. If you would like to comment, I'm looking forward to it.